Hello, how you guys doing? What's going on? I just want to say thank you all for the likes and the shares. When I tell you I came across this video and I think you guys will want to see about it, it definitely has your favorite topic dealing with down low men. And they have a collage of 15 women in the industry that caught their man having a gay affair. So I think you guys will really like this. So let's watch it together and let's react. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe here at this YouTube channel. And just want to say thank you all for supporting me. And just to add a note to it, I know a lot of people are like, why can't these men just come out? Why? I will tell you why. Because they has not been raised to come out. A DL man comes from a DL boy. A DL boy comes from parents that say, hey, we're not going to have that gay stuff in this house. You're going to be straight. You're going to perform straight. You're going to perform masculinity because that's just how I'm going to raise you. And that's just what you have to be and nothing else. So these boys, they don't heal from it. They don't know how to heal from it. And they just take that and they just keep going on. So you're dealing with men that have been forced to perform heterosexual and to perform masculine for survival. So it's just going to continue. It starts with the parents. So let's like, share, and subscribe. Let's watch it. And I know you guys are going to have a lot of comments. So drop them in the comments section. All right, let's see what's going on now.
That would make me go off the deep end. Cause like, imagine finding out that the person that you spent 7 years with is gay. Imagine that. Like, what?
People often think that the marriage of a famous couple must be smooth and beautiful. The lights, the money, the fame, all of it creates a picture that anyone looking at would assume is flawless and perfect. But the truth is different. Behind the closed doors of their homes, there are secrets buried so deep that even the people involved didn't discover them for decades. Then, when the truth finally comes out, everything collapses. The stories I'm about to tell are about the moment when 15 black female singers caught their husbands having sex with men. The lives of these women seem to have reached the very peak. They had voices the whole world stopped to listen to. They had status that many people could only dream of. But not everyone knows that the biggest thing they all had in common was witnessing, with their own eyes, the man who had been by their side for decades having sex with another man. 15. Melba Moore. The Broadway singer who was stunned as she personally pulled back the curtain on her marriage. Melba Moore once stood at the pinnacle of Broadway, winning the prestigious Tony Award and leaving her mark with a soulful voice that would silence entire audiences. She was a symbol of success, a name that commanded admiration, and a woman who believed she had a solid family for 17 long years. Her marriage to music producer Charles Huggins began in 1974. October 18, 1990, started out like any other busy day. While preparing for a recording session in New York, Melba received a call from a hotel employee in Philadelphia. It was a place she and her husband frequently stayed at whenever they traveled together, so her phone number was registered in their system. They apologized for the mix-up regarding her husband requesting extra towels and champagne. At first, she thought the hotel staff had simply made a mistake, because her husband hadn't said anything about going to Philadelphia. But then, when the employee apologized again profusely for another mix-up, she started to feel uneasy. How could a luxury hotel keep making mistakes like that? Her gut told her something was wrong. That seemingly small mix-up became the first crack in the wall of the family she had built for over a decade. A feeling of unease crept into her mind. She began recalling Charles's long trips, those unexplained absences that suddenly seemed far more suspicious than before. Without hesitation, she immediately got on a plane and headed straight to the hotel where her husband was staying. Around 11 o'clock that night, she stood in front of the suite door. It wasn't hard for a regular guest to request a key card for her husband's room. She took a deep breath and opened the door. The scene behind that door made her collapse instantly. Her husband was having sex with a young man. In that moment, every memory, Every belief, every year of attachment suddenly became blurry. She stood frozen, then her emotions exploded into a scream before she turned and ran out of the room. Throughout the previous 16 years of living together, Melba had no idea about her husband's true sexual orientation. What happened that night was the final piece that completed a picture she had never seen in full. After asking her lawyer to investigate her husband's infidelity further, she was shocked to discover that he hadn't just betrayed her emotionally. Money had gone missing, financial decisions weren't transparent, projects had been manipulated. It all added up to a much more terrifying story. Her fame and income had been used to support Charles and his male lover without her knowing. What's more, just a few months later, right before Melba filed for divorce, another divorce petition had already been quietly submitted. Her husband had beaten her to it. The long legal battle left her exhausted. From a woman standing at the peak of fame, Melba fell into financial ruin. The entire foundation of her life, from love to money, had been drained from the inside. 14. Jevetta Steele. The singer who nearly won an Oscar was stunned when she witnessed her husband making love to a man on Valentine's night. Jevetta Steele is the voice that caught the world's attention with the song Calling You, an artist who stepped out of the theater and made her mark with raw, powerful emotion. She married her husband in late 1978 in a strict Pentecostal environment. Success came, fame spread, and she once believed her marriage was the solid support behind the bright lights. On Wednesday night, February 14, 1990, while many people were lost in the romantic spirit of Valentine's Day, Jevetta was at home in Minneapolis with her 2 young children. Her husband had just called, saying he had to go on a short business trip, an excuse that had been repeated many times, especially on weekends. The day before, he had just returned from one trip and promised to have Valentine's dinner with her, but he broke his promise once again. She didn't complain and quietly went to the kitchen to wash the dishes. Right as she was about to take out the kitchen trash, she discovered a dinner bill for 2 sitting in the middle of the trash can. The bill showed the payment time as 2 days earlier. The location was a restaurant right next to a famous jazz bar in the city center, a place her husband often mentioned as a meeting spot for business partners. The unease that had been building up inside her made her unable to sit still any longer. A woman's intuition can be a terrifying thing. She left the 2 kids with the neighbors, got in the car, and drove straight into the night toward that bar. The streets were still brightly lit, but her heart was filled with darkness. The cold air seeped through the car windows, but it wasn't nearly as cold as her heart at that moment. She walked into the bar and moved deep into the private seating area, where few people would notice. Then, in a hidden corner, she saw a scene she would never forget for the rest of her life. Her husband was there, not alone. He was hugging, kissing, and touching another person with the intimacy of lovers. The problem was, his lover wasn't a woman. It was a man. She walked up to her husband in a state of lost control. A slap landed hard, the sound echoing and leaving everyone around them stunned. Looking into her husband's shocked eyes, Jevetta didn't cry, didn't curse. She simply turned and left with a shattered heart. When her husband chased her back home, he confessed that he was a man living on the down low. What made everything even more terrifying was that he had known he was HIV positive before they got married, but had always hidden it. Remembering the times they had been intimate in the past, Jevetta ran to the bathroom and threw up violently. After that night, the marriage ended. Jevetta had to get emergency health checks and face a fear that no one is ever prepared to endure. The days waiting for the results felt endless with high risk, but she still held on to hope. In the end, that hope was extinguished like a candle in the wind, but she didn't fall apart easily. From those ruins, the pain was transformed into the musical 2 Queens, 1 Castle, where she told her story through music and emotion. It wasn't just a personal journey. The work became a voice for many other women who found themselves in similar situations. A warning an awakening, and also a way to heal. 13. Phyllis Hyman, the jazz queen who was stunned when she caught her husband gathering with two men in their private apartment. Phyllis Hyman was a sophisticated jazz and R&B singer who captivated audiences with her deep emotion. She married her manager Larry Alexander in 1977. She had a brilliant career and a life that seemed happy, but behind that glamour was a marriage filled with years of deception. On September 7, 1981, a packed performance schedule in Detroit left Phyllis exhausted. Her body was drained and her spirit heavy, so she decided to head home earlier than planned. She had no idea that choice would change the direction of her life. That night, around 9 p.m., she arrived home but realized she had lost her house keys, leaving only the key to their suburban apartment in her bag. That was the place her husband always called his private office, almost completely separate from their family life. Phyllis left again and headed to the suburban apartment without warning her husband. From the outside, the apartment windows were completely dark. She thought he was still away on business. She used the spare key and quietly opened the door. The moment the door opened, she froze when she saw men's shoes and clothes scattered all over the floor, from the living room all the way to the slightly ajar bedroom door. That door seemed to be inviting her to discover the secret. Curious, she tiptoed and peeked through the crack. Her husband wasn't alone. He was lying on the bed with two other men, completely naked. Muffled, suggestive sounds were coming from inside. Phyllis felt dizzy, her mind spinning. The happy years since their 1977 marriage flashed through her mind and then shattered. The husband she trusted had been living a secret life with other men, even maintaining a separate space to nurture those relationships. She dropped her bag, turned around, and walked away, almost unconsciously. The three men in the room heard the strange noise and immediately stopped what they were doing. Her husband rushed out to check, wearing only underwear. When he saw Phyllis walking away in a daze, he tried to hold her back, explain, and apologize, promising it would never happen again. She nodded absent-mindedly without saying a word, as if she were no longer fully conscious. What happened that day brought pressure, doubt, a feeling of being controlled, and disorientation. Phyllis gradually fell into an unstable state and became increasingly dependent on drugs. Later, she admitted she also had bisexual tendencies. What hurt her wasn't that Larry liked men, but the lack of fidelity in their marriage. The pressure from the music industry, combined with her personal wounds, gradually pushed her to the edge. Her husband's betrayal was one of the main factors that led to the collapse of their marriage and the pain she carried until the end of her life in 1995. 12. Tamar Braxton, the R&B star who stormed into the hotel and froze when she caught her husband having sex with a young man. Tamar Braxton is a standout R&B star and reality TV personality from the Braxton family, always trying to make her own mark with her strong personality and energetic voice. She married music producer Daryl Amlani in the early 2000s, but their marriage fell apart in a way no one saw coming. On June 22, 2004, Los Angeles was still shining bright with lights, while Tamar was spinning from the pressure of building her solo career. At that time, she still believed she had a busy husband working in music production. That night, Daryl said he would be in a late meeting with business partners. It was a familiar excuse, so normal it couldn't get any more normal. But then, Tamar suddenly received a text from an unknown number. The message only contained the room number of a hotel Daryl often visited, along with a photo of a man helping him into the room. She immediately thought something bad had happened to her husband. Maybe he was too drunk to get home by himself, so someone texted her to come pick him up. Without thinking twice, Tamar got in the car and drove straight to West Hollywood. The car stopped in front of a small, discreet boutique hotel, the kind of place where private stories could easily stay hidden behind closed doors. Thanks to that photo, Tamar quickly convinced the front desk staff to let her go up to the room. Everything went smoothly, as if the path to the truth had already been cleared. In the quiet hallway, under the soft golden lights, Tamar's footsteps echoed like her own heartbeat pounding in her chest. Even though she didn't understand why, she had felt uneasy ever since seeing that photo. She stood in front of the room door, raised her hand to knock, but it was already slightly open. Maybe the person inside forgot to lock it. After hesitating for a second, she decided to push the door open and walk right in. Inside that room, her husband wasn't alone. The scene before her eyes was enough to make her trust collapse instantly. Two men, completely naked on the same bed, said it all. A few used condoms were scattered next to the bed. Tamar stood frozen for a few seconds. Then her shock quickly turned into pain. She let out a loud scream. Right after that, she turned around, walked quickly, almost running, out of there. On the way out of the hotel, the memories in her head started to connect. The times her husband came home late, the suspicious business trips, the betrayal had probably been going on for a long time. She just hadn't seen it. That incident destroyed what seemed like a beautiful marriage. Tamar lost all trust in her partner, and of course their marriage ended very quickly. Later, she mentioned many times that she had discovered her husband was gay in the most painful way possible. 11. Portia Williams. The reality TV star who walked into the VIP section and saw her husband being intimate and affectionate with a man. Portia Williams is a prominent face in reality television and music, known for her glamorous image and what seemed like a perfect marriage to former NFL player Cordell Stewart. On the night of November 11, 2012, Atlanta was still buzzing after dark, while Portia was busy with her filming schedule for the TV show. But deep down, an uncomfortable feeling had been following her for days. Her husband kept disappearing from home. Those old friend meetings lasted unusually long, sometimes for an entire month without him coming back. And the way he avoided her eyes made everything even more suspicious. That night, Portia decided to find the answers herself. She followed the vague clues and stopped in front of an upscale sports bar where she had seen her husband's receipts many times before. The main lobby was crowded with loud thumping music. Inside, it was divided into private sections. She walked in and headed straight for VIP area number 2, the number she had seen repeatedly on the bills. The door was slightly open, and she saw her husband there with a few friends. Cordell was sitting very close to another man, so close it couldn't possibly be just casual socializing. One of Cordell's arms was wrapped around the man's waist. They were laughing, talking, and kissing each other on the cheek. Before she could see anything more disturbing, Portia stormed straight into the room. The atmosphere changed instantly. Her sudden appearance turned the VIP section into chaos. Even though she didn't catch him in bed, what she saw was more than enough to shatter her trust in the marriage. Cordell couldn't come up with any excuse to defend himself. After that night, their relationship could never go back to the way it was. Portia realized she had never truly understood the man she had been living with through thick and thin. By mid-2013, the two of them finalized their divorce. Afterward, rumors about Cordell's sexuality spread everywhere and became a hot topic of discussion. Portia has hinted many times that she had no idea about the hidden side of her husband's private life until that day. 10. LaJoyce Brookshire. The author of the book Faith Under Fire, who was stunned when she caught her husband making love to a man right on their marital bed. LaJoyce Brookshire is a singer, author, and educator who shocked readers with her book Faith Under Fire, where she tells the story behind what seemed like a perfect marriage to her late husband, Stephen, a successful black man who hid the fact that he was gay and HIV positive. On August 3, 1994, LaJoyce finished her workshop in Chicago a day earlier than planned. After a long, tiring day, she just wanted to get home quickly and find some familiar peace. Her husband said he was having a meeting with business partners right at the house, something very normal for a busy real estate entrepreneur. But as soon as her car pulled into the garage, She suddenly felt anxious and just wanted to get inside as fast as possible. The front door opened, and the inside of the house wasn't quiet like usual. LaJoyce heard soft, gentle music mixed with faint laughter coming from the master bedroom. The sound wasn't loud, but it was enough to catch her attention. She quickly moved toward the room. The door wasn't fully closed. She gave it a light push, and it swung open. On the bed that belonged to the two of them, her husband wasn't alone. Beside him was another man, someone not at all unfamiliar. It was a business associate who had appeared many times at family dinners and had been a regular part of their lives. The two men were lying on top of each other in a very intimate position. LaJoyce stood there, frozen. Her first feeling wasn't anger, but a shock so deep it numbed her. Her brain refused to process what was happening right in front of her eyes. The other man panicked and yelled, then quickly tried to cover himself, while her husband looked flustered and tried to explain. But LaJoyce couldn't hear anything after that. Her ears were filled with a painful ringing sound. She didn't want to hear any more lies from her husband. The truth was right there in front of her, impossible to deny. After that night, she began separating from her husband and suddenly started thinking about something else. Her husband's health had recently shown unusual signs that he had casually brushed off as the flu or overwork. A few weeks later, she discovered her husband had HIV. Despite the betrayal, she chose to stay and care for him until he passed away from AIDS complications in 1995. After all, he was her first love. Fortunately, LaJoyce was not infected with the virus. This experience motivated her to become an educator and speaker on HIV/AIDS. 9. Tisha Campbell. The famous actress who froze when she opened the apartment door and saw her husband being intimate with a man on the living room sofa. Tisha Campbell is a well-known actress and singer, famous for many hit movies and TV shows. After more than 2 decades of marriage to actor Dwayne Martin, her life suddenly took a different turn. On the afternoon of May 19, 2017, Los Angeles was still blazing hot. Tisha had just finished a tiring day on set. Her husband said he was resting at their apartment in Studio City after a long day of filming. That evening was supposed to be a normal night with simple plans. Tisha finished shooting 2 hours earlier than usual and wanted to get home quickly to prepare dinner for the family herself. The elevator opened and the hallway was quiet as always. But as she approached the front door, a series of strange sounds made her stop in her tracks. Tisha tried to stay calm and quietly opened the door as gently as possible. The scene behind that door made the grocery bag in her hand drop to the floor with a thud. Right there in the living room on the familiar sofa, her husband was completely naked. Underneath him was a young man whose face was not unfamiliar. He had appeared a few times on her husband's set, and she had seen him by chance when visiting. The moment Tisha's eyes met Dwayne's, the air seemed to freeze. In her heart, all the happy memories from over 20 years of marriage shattered. Emotions exploded. She rushed in and started hitting her husband and his male lover. But instead of explaining or apologizing, Dwayne held his lover tightly to protect him and clenched his teeth against his wife's accusations. After screaming until she was exhausted, Tisha walked out in a daze. The house that used to be her happiest place had now become a place she never wanted to return to. By early 2018, their marriage officially ended amid public drama. It was no longer a private matter. The divorce lawsuit became the center of attention with accusations about sexuality and betrayal. Tisha later needed many years to heal her broken heart. 8. Lynette McKee, the multi-talented artist who witnessed her husband kissing a man in a dark corner of a jazz club. Lynette McKee is a multi-talented artist who shined from Broadway to film and jazz music. She was a respected figure in the arts with a long career full of memorable achievements. She married Leo Compton, a youth counselor in New York City, in 1983. On the night of November 27, 2000, New York was colder than usual. Her performance ended early, and Lynette left the stage feeling both excited and tired. Instead of going straight home, she headed to an underground jazz club in Harlem, the place her husband often visited under the excuse of meeting business friends. It was their daughter's birthday, so she wanted to pick him up and go home together. The club door opened and deep, heavy music poured out. Under the weak neon lights, the half-lit, half-dark space made everything look hazy. Lynette walked in, made her way through the crowd, and headed toward the VIP area in the back. Then she saw it. In a hidden corner, under the dim lights, her husband was sitting very close to another man. They shared a long kiss amid the giggling of people around them. In that moment, all the sounds seemed to fade away in Lynette's mind. She moved closer, wanting to confirm what she was seeing. When she clearly saw her husband's face, she burst into tears. She ran out of the club in distress. The streets of Harlem were still lively at night, but her heart felt completely empty. After that night, she separated from him, but wasn't firm enough to file for divorce right away. Through friends, she later learned that what she witnessed that night wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was part of a double life that had existed for a long time. Her friends had seen similar scenes before, but were afraid she couldn't handle the shock, so they had kept it hidden. The pressure to maintain a masculine image in the community had caused Leo to deceive his wife throughout their marriage. By 2001, their marriage officially ended. This experience became an important part of how Lynette viewed the world. From that shock, she began speaking out more about the secrets hidden in relationships. 7. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul who was traumatized when she caught her husband having sex with a man. Aretha Franklin is the immortal icon of soul music, a voice revered around the world, a woman who always kept her private life hidden behind the dazzling lights of the stage. That's why very few people knew about the secrets in her second marriage to actor Glynn Turman, which began in 1978. On February 14, 1983, Detroit was still buzzing from a major performance. Aretha was breathing heavily as she stepped off the stage. Her husband couldn't go on a Valentine's date with her because he had to attend a networking party in the entertainment industry at a famous hotel in the city center. It sounded like a reasonable excuse, but the ongoing rumors about his sexuality had been making her uncomfortable for a while. Valentine's night was supposed to be for couples to be close, so Aretha didn't understand why anyone would suggest holding a networking event on a day like that. Her intuition told her to go to the hotel to find out the truth, but when she asked the front desk, they said there was no such party there. In that moment, her trust in her husband began to crack. Filled with doubt, Aretha drove back home. But on the way, she happened to spot her husband's car parked in front of another hotel owned by one of her friends. Thanks to that connection, she was quickly escorted up to the top floor, where the suites were completely isolated from the outside world. The hallway was so quiet that Aretha could clearly hear her own heartbeat pounding. Standing in front of the room door, she hesitated for a long time, afraid the truth would be exactly what she suspected. But instead of living in doubt forever, she decided to knock. The door opened quickly, but it wasn't her husband who answered. The man looked at her with a mix of confusion and nervousness. Just that one look was enough for her to understand everything. Immediately, Aretha walked straight into the room. In the large suite on the king-size bed, her husband was tied up in a sexual bondage style, blindfolded. He was in a situation that couldn't be interpreted as anything other than betrayal. In that moment, she remembered all the previous rumors, the whispers in the industry, and the strange, pitying looks people had given her. Aretha wasn't the type to show her emotions in front of others. But seeing this scene, her tears poured down like rain. Hearing her familiar crying and questioning voice, Glynn finally realized what was happening. But before he could explain, Aretha had already left the room. After that night, the distance between them grew wider and wider. Aretha suffered psychological trauma for a long time, constantly tormenting herself, believing she wasn't good enough, and that's why her husband cheated with men. Their marriage only existed on paper for a few more months before officially ending in 1984. 6. Stephanie Mills, the Broadway star who collapsed when she opened the studio door and saw her husband passionately having sex with a male dancer. Stephanie Mills is a Broadway star best known for The Wiz. She had a powerful voice and an image tied to discipline, high standards, and a strong religious family background. She married Jeffrey Daniel from the group Shalimar in 1980. On the night of July 9, 1982, Los Angeles was still brightly lit, even though it was late. Stephanie had just left the recording studio after many hours of intense work. Her body was exhausted, and her mind was still spinning with melodies and future plans. Her husband said he was rehearsing dance moves with the group at a nearby studio, just like any other day. It was an essential part of his job. But that night, Stephanie suddenly felt like stopping by to surprise her husband. She even brought some late-night snacks for everyone. The studio was about to close. It was quiet outside, but as she got closer, she heard music playing. The thumping disco beat mixed with laughter. The door wasn't fully locked. It was only slightly ajar. Stephanie gave it a gentle push. The door opened without making any noise. The sounds from inside became much clearer. Flashing lights pulsed to the rhythm of the music. In the middle of the room, her husband was dancing. His movements were in the whacking style, fast, sharp, and full of expression. The dance had a free, flamboyant energy that was very different from Stephanie's world. Just as she lifted the bag of snacks to greet everyone, she saw the distance between Jeffrey and a young male dancer in the group close up. Their gestures crossed the line that any wife could accept. They were caressing each other, embracing, and finally sharing a deep, passionate kiss. The music kept blasting, the lights kept flashing, but for Stephanie, everything around her seemed to sink into silent darkness. Her ears rang and her eyes widened, overwhelmed with emotion. She threw the bag of food at her husband, while everyone stared in shock. Then she walked out of the studio in a panic. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. The Los Angeles night was still lively, but she couldn't think about anything except the scene she had just witnessed. After that night, their marriage had no chance of being saved. It ended quickly, without any begging or fighting. But the shock stayed with her for a very long time. It took Stephanie more than 6 years to overcome the psychological barrier and marry actor Dino Meminger in 1989. 5. Mary J. Blige, the queen of hip-hop soul, who was devastated when she watched a secret video and saw her husband having sex with a man. Mary J. Blige is the icon of hip-hop soul, a woman who turned pain into music and touched millions of hearts with emotional hit songs. But few people know she went through a painful divorce with Kendu Isaacs in 2016. And it all started on one fateful night. On September 12, 2015, New Jersey was quieter than usual. Mary had just finished a new album and thought she could finally breathe after days of intense work. But right after that, she noticed several strange charges appearing in their joint account. At this point, her husband's unclear schedule began making her suspicious. Instead of confronting him loudly, Mary chose to investigate quietly. She hired a private investigator. A hidden camera was placed in the private office in Manhattan that her husband often visited. Late that weekend night, Mary sat alone in their big house. In front of her was the video the investigator had just sent. She pressed play. The first images that appeared were of her husband's office, empty. A few seconds later, her husband showed up with a young woman. As soon as the door closed, they immediately threw themselves at each other, kissing wildly like they were starving. Mary sat there in shock, unable to move, her eyes glued to the screen. Her heart was pounding, but her body had gone numb. The problem was, Kendu wasn't just living a double life with women. Less than a week later, the private investigator suddenly sent her an address to a cheap motel near Kendu's office in Manhattan. She drove 2 hours to get there. As soon as she arrived, the investigator led her straight to the room where her husband was. He handed her a room key and signaled for her to open the door herself. The moment she saw the two of them tangled together on the bed, Mary's heart shattered once again. Her husband was doing it with a man. After that day, their marriage quickly came to an end. A husband who cheats with women might still have a chance at forgiveness, but a husband who cheats with men, the relationship with his wife is almost impossible to save. By 2016, their divorce became very public and messy, involving intense financial disputes. Later, Mary channeled all the pain from that relationship into her music. 4. Cheryl Lee Ralph, the Broadway diva who froze when she saw her husband making love to a man in their Malibu apartment. Cheryl Lee Ralph is a Broadway and film star best known for Dreamgirls. She is a strong artist who later became a powerful voice for HIV/AIDS awareness and LGBTQ+ rights. She married businessman Eric Maurice in 1990. Close to noon on June 5, 1998, Los Angeles was scorching hot. The sky was so clear that the sunlight felt like fire pouring down on the coastal road. Cheryl had just finished filming early, giving her the afternoon to enjoy some private time. Her husband said he was resting at a service department near Malibu after a long business trip. So she got the idea to surprise him, since they hadn't seen each other in a month. Cheryl drove there. The building stood tall under the blazing sun, quiet and luxurious. The elevator took her to the 8th floor. To prove he had nothing to hide, Eric had the habit of always sending his wife the exact address and room number. That's why Cheryl trusted her husband completely and had never done a surprise check before. As she approached the apartment, she didn't knock right away. There was a large glass window right in front. The curtain was only half drawn, probably because the person inside had been in too much of a hurry and forgot. With just one quick glance, she saw everything clearly. Inside the brightly lit room with no hidden corners, on the long couch in the middle of the room, her husband and another man were having fun. The light from the chandelier made every detail and movement on their bodies sharp and clear. In Cheryl's mind, everything exploded. The first feeling was emptiness. Then a wave of nausea hit her. She stood there in confusion, not knocking, not making any sound. Suddenly, the man who was holding Eric noticed her and let out a loud scream in shock. In that moment, she snapped out of it and quickly ran away. As the elevator doors closed, she felt like her heart was being squeezed. After that morning, they began living separately. No matter how much Eric tried to explain that it was just a one-time mistake, Cheryl couldn't forget what she had seen. By 2001, their marriage officially ended. That experience stayed with Cheryl for many years afterward, affecting how she viewed people, relationships, and truth. She began speaking more openly about the secrets that had been hidden in the community, stories many people chose never to mention. 3. Miki Howard, the R&B singer who was deeply shocked when she caught her man hugging and kissing another man under red lights. Miki Howard is a powerful R&B singer, an icon of the 80s and 90s stage. She was known not only for her music, but also for her turbulent relationships behind the scenes of the entertainment industry. She married businessman and music manager Eddie Phelps in 1989. On the night of October 21st, 1996, Chicago was wrapped in late autumn cold, but inside the club where Miki had just performed, it was burning hot. She stepped off the stage, sweat still fresh, when she received a text message. The content made her heart skip a beat. The man she trusted most in life was walking into a well-known underground gay bar in the South Side. It was a place famous for secrets hidden behind neon lights and loud music. Miki didn't know who sent the message. It was an unknown number, but she sensed it wasn't a cruel joke. She immediately left the club, got in the car, and drove straight to the location. As the streetlights flashed past the car window, the feeling of unease inside her grew stronger. The bar was tucked away on a small side street. The bouncer stopped Miki at the door because she looked unfamiliar. She had to spend half her pay from that night to buy an entry ticket and promised not to cause any trouble for the guests inside. It was quiet outside, but the moment the door opened, she felt like she had stepped into another world. House music pounded. Smoke hung in the air. Red lights covered the entire space. Mickey walked in, and with just one sweep of her eyes, she recognized her husband's familiar face. The distance between Eddie and a flamboyantly dressed man was so close it gave Mickey goosebumps. They were hugging tightly, leaning in to talk, and touching each other in sensitive places. She tried to stay calm, walked up to her husband, and simply said 2 words, "Go home." She truly kept her promise and didn't make a scene inside the bar. She just wanted to face him directly to confirm what she was seeing was real. Then Mickey turned around and walked out of the bar faster than she had entered. The moment she stepped outside, the cold air hit her face. But the emptiness inside her heart felt even colder. On top of that, the bouncer smirked and said he had already warned her not to go in. After that night, Mickey no longer had any illusions or expectations about her husband. She finalized the divorce just 1 month later. 2. Vanessa Williams. The beauty queen and singer who was stunned when she personally saw her husband being intimate with a man on their 10th wedding anniversary. Vanessa Williams is an icon of beauty and music. From Miss America to a successful R&B star, she always appeared strong and professional. She married film producer and publicist Ramon Hervey II in 1987. On the afternoon of January 2, 1997, New York was covered in soft, gentle light. She had just gone through a difficult period to regain her place in the industry, and things were finally starting to stabilize. Today was also their 10th wedding anniversary. It should have been a happy day, but deep inside, Vanessa felt uneasy. Her husband said he was in a meeting with his management team at an office building in Midtown Manhattan. It was a familiar schedule with nothing unusual, until she drove past the area. Vanessa wanted to drive around to shake off her restlessness, but on the way, she accidentally saw her husband's car parked in front of a hotel. She didn't call him to check. Instead, she walked into the building. Something pushed her to act like a private detective. As soon as she entered the lobby, she saw her husband hugging 2 men around the waist and receiving a room key from the front desk. She clearly saw the room number on the key, but didn't confront him right there. Vanessa clenched her fists tightly, trying to stay calm as she went up to the room Ramon had just booked. She was patient enough to wait in the hallway for half an hour. Her heart burned like fire, but her expression remained strangely calm. When she figured enough time had probably passed, she knocked on the door, pretending to be room service, delivering a gift for the VIP guest. The moment the door opened, she stormed in without saying much and slapped her naked husband hard across the face, leaving several scratches. Used condoms were scattered all over the bed, making her feel sick to her stomach. In that moment, the image of a stable, proper marriage completely shattered. When the other 2 men in the room realized what was happening, they quickly pushed her out and slammed the door shut. The hallway outside was still as quiet as when she arrived, but she felt even quieter inside. She didn't bang on the door or scream. She wanted to keep what little dignity she had left. That afternoon shook the entire foundation of what seemed like a perfect marriage. Vanessa didn't listen to any advice or apologies and filed for divorce immediately. After the divorce, even though it wasn't pleasant, she chose to maintain a civil relationship and sometimes even lived with her ex-husband occasionally for the sake of their 3 children. 1. Janet Jackson, the queen of pop who froze when she saw her husband having sex with a man right in the living room. Janet Jackson is a pop and R&B icon, an artist who shaped pop culture with her bold image and influence that spanned generations. But her secret marriage to Renee Elizondo Jr. from 1991 to 2000 was one of Hollywood's biggest secrets. On the night of August 28, 1999, Los Angeles was still shining with lights, but Janet's heart was filled with darkness. Her marriage had been kept so private that almost no one outside her immediate family knew about it.